Good evening. Did it go out the mic? Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for April 11th, 2023. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Recommended action, approval of the March 14th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, we have a presentation this evening with the Chester County Intermediate Unit, their budget presentation via Dr. George Fiore, the Executive Director, and Joseph P. Libitsky, the Director of Administrative Services. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello. Make sure. We're live now. Thank you, Mrs. Mills, and thank you for putting us at the front end of the agenda as well. We are on our tour of going to school districts for budget presentations. Before we start, I'd like to thank a few folks. I'd like to thank Mr. Fisher, who's your IU representative on our board, for your support, because this budget doesn't come together without the assistance of a lot of folks, so your support's greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank Dr. Van Voren. Appreciate your support and all of the 11 other superintendents, because we work very closely together. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Rohn for your work on the school safety and security task force in Chester County, one of the most important things we're doing. So we appreciate your partnership with the IU. I'm honored here to have Mr. Libitsky join me, and we're going to talk about the CCIU budget. Next slide, please. So the CCIU budget is overall $303 million, a little north of that, and it's made up of 4 components. And those 4 components, you have a core budget, categorical budget, our occupational education budget, and our marketplace services budget. And we're going to walk you through each one of these, as well as and Mr. Libitsky will walk you through all those. At the very end, I'll talk about where the IU is headed for the future, which I think will be pretty exciting for you here at Coatesville. Next slide, please. So bottom line, we're recommending no increase in the proposed core budget contribution for Coatesville, and no increase in the current occupational education tuition rate. So you can, that has been done in order to support all of our school districts in budgeting, and those are the parts of our budget that you are obligated to participate in. Now, the marketplace program budget is looking at a 2.99% increase, and those are options that you have. You do not have to participate in the marketplace budget. Those are our services that are for special education and others. And it is a mission of our intermediate unit and a board goal that we keep all of our pricing underneath the Act 1 statewide index for increases, an average increase below 4.1, and we were able to do that at 2.99% for marketplace. Next slide, please. So the contribution for the core budget will remain at $47,254, and that's set by the state, how that formula for that number. It's based on enrollment and a few other factors. The occupational education budget, so the cost for Coatesville will increase by $31,000, which is about 1%, and that's for increase in students. That number, you have one of the largest enrollments in Chester County, with 346 students enrolled in Technical College High School, and I think that's a strong credit to your commitment as a school district, as well as your high school administration, your staff, and your school counselors. We are actually seeing the largest increase in Technical College High School enrollment we've ever seen, and I'll highlight that later. And I think our parents and our communities are seeing that it's not a singular option for just college. It's college and career, and you can do both when you go to the Technical College High School program. Our back one part at the bottom there, the marketplace services budget, you're going to see an increase by $549,000, but that's based on your current usage. We do an estimate so that as you create your budget, you're able to predict for the future. So that could change based on your use, up or down. Thank you. Next slide. So it's basically in the school code why you take action on these budgets. The first one is the core services. In the school code, it says that your school district has to vote on it by April 30th, and the occupational education budget by June 30th. Typically, most school districts in Chester County, you lump them together and vote at the same time for convenience. The Chester County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors has already approved the core services and occupational education services budget. Our marketplace budget will be approved at this our board meeting in April, and there's no action for the Coatesville board on that item. And lastly, the categorical services budget, which Mr. Lubitsky is going to walk you through. Those are grants and other federal services that there is no action need to be taken. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lubitsky, who will walk through each part of these budgets and highlight some programs that I believe will be of interest. I'll be back on at the end to talk about where we're headed for the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fiore. If you move to the next slide, please. The intermediate unit's budget document's over 350 pages long. There's a tremendous amount of detail, so I've tried to just capture elements of each of these budgets in several slides. I'd like to highlight the categorical budgets area because this is alternative revenue sources, involve no local school district funds. But you can see projected over $26 million next year, supports a lot of positions, a lot of services that we deliver to children. So again, next slide, please. Likewise, one of the reasons that we can keep our tuition flat and our prices with modest increases is we've been very, very successful in the last several years in obtaining grants. Grants are a lot of work. You have to write them. There's a lot of compliance measures and other protocols you have to follow, and it's competition. But this year, year to date, we've exceeded our previous years. We're at over $73 million. And again, this goes across all areas of our organization. People are very, very skilled at recognizing these opportunities and pursuing them. So again, this is just an effort that allows us to help keep prices down to our districts. Next slide, please. We also do a lot of administrative services to outside organizations, and we obviously charge a fee for service for that. A good example of that is ChescoNet. This is the local, regional, wide area network. Connects all the schools, universities, government buildings, libraries, and several other organizations across the region. Obviously, it was invaluable during the pandemic shutdown and the delivery of educational programs remotely. But again, we're the kind of the power behind this that keeps this going and keeps expanding it. The next slide begins just a short discussion on our proposed core budget. You can see the divisions that are supported in this particular budget. At the IU, it makes up 10% of our overall operations. Next slide. The proposed budget is $34.7 million. That's a $1.4 million increase. However, you can see on the next slide, of that $34.7 million, the total direct cost to our member school districts in Chester County is a little over $600,000. And Coatesville's will remain constant at about $47,254. So again, because of some of the factors I've already highlighted, we're able to continue those operations with minimal impact on the school districts, local school districts' budgets. The next area of the budget I want to highlight on the next slide is the occupational education budget. This is the particular budget that supports the operation of our 3 technical college high schools. And with the support of the districts over the last several decades, Chester County has really created a platform to deliver vocational and career technical education that's second to none, I know, in the Commonwealth, and certainly it has to be one of the best ones in the nation. The next slide, just to highlight a little bit of what Dr. Fiore spoke about. The proof is in the numbers. This is a historical chart of our enrollment at each of our campuses, and at this point we are at an all-time high. Every campus has seen significant increases in enrollment, and that's obviously driving a credit to our staff, a credit to our districts, and obviously we're pleased that the students and parents are satisfied with our programs. The next slide is just an overview of the proposed budget. Proposed budget next year is $31,574,000 overall. That's about a 4.9% increase. but because of some of the factors I talked about and increased enrollment, we are able to support that budget with no increase in our tuition rate. And the next slide will show that our goal has always been that we don't want to increase prices, but if we have to, we will limit them to the Act 1 increase at or below the Act 1 increase. And historically, we have not had to increase prices many years in this particular program, but when we have, we've been able to keep it relatively modest. Next slide is actually extracted some numbers specific to Coatesville Area School District. This is the formula that's used to determine the district's contribution to the occupational education budget. It's based on a 3-year average enrollment. On the top of the page, you can see the current year based on enrollment, and then the bottom in blue is the proposed budget for next year. So your enrollment has stayed pretty steady, and the total contributions would be about $3,200,000 roughly. Next slide, please. I think more importantly, this is just a summary of the almost 350 students in our programs and the types of programs that they're participating in. I think it's a great opportunity for students with all kinds of interest to take these type of programs and excel in them. So again, I think that's a very important thing to recognize with the career and technical education programs. Next slide is just the final area I'll talk about. It's actually the largest area of the intermediate units budgets. It's called the Marketplace Services Programs. 103 different program areas totaling projected over $211 million next year. These are supported by close to 500 prices or pricing structure. On average, the prices will increase a little bit less than 3% next year. Districts are only invoiced and charged for the services that they use. So that's, again, there's no obligation to use these. Next slide. Just a summary looking at historically. It's actually a decrease overall in expenditures, and that's because some of the COVID-related grants and subsidies that we have been receiving in the last several years are falling off. So it's a slight actual decrease in the actual budget. Next slide. Like to highlight really what's the core of the marketplace services budget is our student services program. Overall, over $207 million in operations. You can see the wide variety of programs that are offered by our staff, not just on the campus here in Coatesville, but across the entire region. And again, next slide, I think really tells the story that we serve for our clients, birth through age 21, over 29,000 students, and that's on the next slide. Next slide, finally, just a summary of the marketplace services budget pricing, which is, if you could advance it, please. This is just if you advance the slide. This is just a summary of the services pricing that I discussed. We're pleased that most of our prices have not increased, or the increases are well below the Act 1 index, for an overall increase of 2.99%. And then finally, just a similar look historically at our pricing increases. Again, when we've had to increase prices, we have kept them well below the Act 1 index for that particular year. The last slide that I'll talk about before turning it back over to Dr. Fiore is just a summary of the projected cost by program for both this year and next year of all the services that the district participates in. So you can see there's a wide range of services to students and other services available. Some have seen increases in participation, and others have remained relatively flat. So with that, you can advance the next slide, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Fiore.
Thank you. So one of the most important parts of our mission is being able to serve students across Chester County. And what we've found is it's the mission of all 12 of our school districts, to be honest. And what we're looking at doing is improving access and expanding opportunity for children in Chester County. Post-COVID, we're seeing significant needs in a variety of ways. We've also seen an increase in population in Chester County because it's a great place to live. So it has created a great opportunity for all of us in Chester County. So if we move to the next slide, there are some key tenets of what we're looking at, looking ahead to the future. And many of these are not different than what you're looking at. For example, the first bullet is school safety and security improvements. We have over 1 million square feet of property that we operate, and that is just a significant amount of space that we have to ensure the safety of our students and our staff. So we have several upgrades that are happening all throughout Chester County to ensure we can meet that goal. The second bullet is we are seeing large amounts of growth, and I'll point out some of them. In the eastern part of Chester County, we're seeing enrollment trends that are tremendous. Great Valley, Downingtown, Tredyffrin Easttown, but we also serve into Montgomery and Delaware County. So we have that border in eastern Chester County, Montgomery, and Delaware County that has large population increases, which means increased demand for services. We're also seeing higher needs in special education services across Chester County. So we want to make sure we're able to respond to that because our mission is to serve every child. And we are going to, on the next slide, I'll be able to share that. But the third item, one that is, I think, significant, is travel time to our CCIU campuses. And as you know, it's convenient here. We're on the campus. We're separated by a driveway. But many of the students that come to that campus have over 1 hour van or bus rides. And those students are the last students that should be on bus rides over an hour. And we want to be able to cut down those bus rides so those children have more access to their education. It's the right thing to do, and it's one that we have to take a real hard look at in order to respond to. And that's from all over Chester County and outside of Chester County. So if you're coming from Avongrove to this campus, you can, in a car, it's tough to get here in under 40 minutes. Can you imagine in a van or a bus? We also are running out of space, and I'll talk about it on this slide. We never thought 4 years ago that I'd be standing in front of you saying we're out of space for programs. And I'll highlight some of those out of the 5 campuses that we're highlighting, 4 of them are running out of space. Good problem to have, but it's one, if you can go back to that slide, thank you. It's an issue that we can create more opportunity by expanding. And then lastly, energy management and conservation programs. We all know what happened to our electric bills as school districts and in our homes. We have to find a way to be able to control those costs so we have more stability. So on this slide here, you'll see, here are 5 of our major campuses that I wanted to highlight. And 4 of them have a similar story. One is rather unique. And I'll start with the unique situation at the Learning Center, which is across the driveway here. Currently, we're serving about 184 students, and that fluctuates up or down. But we have 66 students waitlisted on that program and far more that are unrealized because school districts know that there's no more room there. That's because of staffing. We're short about 10 teaching staff members, and we understand how challenging it is to work in that environment. That's for students who have some emotional concerns, as well as some other learning areas that could use some assistance. But then when you move to the other 4, so we have a way, we're also going to approach how we address the staffing issue, and that's actually the only place we're looking at a teaching shortage of 10 positions. The rest of the IU has done really well. So we understand that it is the environment that we have to work on. Well, the other 4 is because we're out of space. Also separated by the driveway is our Child and Career Development Center, which is at an all-time high enrollment of 353 students with 125 students on the wait list. And that's because we have no more room. There's no more space in those classrooms. And also since that building is used 11 months of the year because you have extended school year, we're unable to make upgrades in that building. We have to do them in very short spurts, which means we're not able to get the kind of renovations that we need. And that number of 125 is conservative because we have another unrealized potential of school districts that are saying if you had seats, we'd put them on the wait list. Then you look at our TCHS programs. As Mr. Lubitsky highlighted, we are experiencing our highest enrollment we've ever seen. But what's not shown here is if you look at our current applications for our TCHS programs, compared to 4 years ago, we're over 1,000 student increase, which is a great testament to our county in responding to the workforce needs. But that poses a challenge for space in those vocational and career and technical programs. So in order to address that, we asked our board on the next slide, we saw this growing need where we asked our board of directors as well as the superintendents in Chester County, we wanted to move forward to address it. And we asked the board for administration to actively and swiftly begin the process of identifying and acquiring facility options to improve access and opportunity. And it was unanimous, not only at the board level, but also for our superintendents. In fact, I believe they said, move faster, get seats tomorrow, because the need is so great. So in order to address that, on the next slide, here is the plan that we have put forward and we have enacted. And I'm going to work in several parts of out of order. One of the items is in southern Chester County. In southern Chester County, we had an opportunity with the Avon Grove School District where they had Fred S. Engel Middle School, which has become open because they built a new high school and they are moving their middle school students to their former high school. So we worked with the Avon Grove to be able to lease that property to create a southern Chester County campus. Their board approved it a couple weeks ago. Our board will approve, we're seeking approval in 2 weeks, and then at the school authority, in the school code, IUs are unable to own school buildings, so we have to have our school authority approve it, and that'll happen in May. And then we would like to complete renovations and occupy the school by spring 2025. And I'll just highlight what the impact of that is. By being able to lease that property, we're able to move students that are currently in the Pennox Bridge campus. We have 6 classrooms for Head Start and preschool special ed. We move those students to Fred S. Engel. That would allow us to expand our career and vocational programs, which now creates more access for students across the county. Well, the same would be true in eastern Chester County, which has the largest enrollment. We're looking at acquiring a property. We're in the process of that right now. We are looking to acquire the site by this summer so that we can open a campus by 26, 27. Having a second and third campus here, what that will do is relieve pressure off of this campus, which means more seats. You know, if you think about it from a Coatesville perspective, right next door you have more access to programs and less wait times. When these plans are fully realized, what we'll also be able to do is we can make plans tomorrow to find smaller lease spaces so we can stem what's happening right now until we can get to 2025 and 2026. So by moving ahead in this direction, we're able to find alternative solutions in the short term and long term to address the growing enrollment. And we know that your district is like many others. There are challenges from finding space, but also finding opportunities. There aren't many places to send special education students for needs, and that's across the Commonwealth. And we're seen as a guiding star in many cases for special education in the Commonwealth and the Department of Education, and we're glad to be able to propose this. So this is a look ahead to the future. We're moving quite aggressively. When we received word from the board in February, we already have Southern Chester County campus lease done. We've put bids in on Eastern Chester County campuses, and we're going to keep moving forward so that we can renovate in Central, which is right next door, so we can be able to create some space. So that is our budget presentation and a look to the future, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
One of the questions I have, where you have Central Chester County campus, you're going to upgrade the Coatesville campus. I'm sure you're aware of the problems in Coatesville. And I'm director in Region 1. The PSA scores are low, and so is the expulsion rates in Chester County. So we have a serious behavioral problem. Would you tell us what you're doing to address that?
So the students that come to our programs, particularly even at the Coatesville campus, are actually from the entire region, because that's our only location. So we serve schools, about 40 different school districts at that campus, between the CDC and the Learning Center. Our work is when your district identifies in a continuum of services with special education where you're not able to fully meet their needs. So if they're not able to be served in your district here, whether that's K through 12, then we become an option. So it's after you've exhausted all of your resources in Coatesville, then students are sent to us. When they are sent to us, we have intense interventions, whether it's in math, reading scores. It could also be in physical therapy, their IEP goals, and occupational therapy, speech and language. So we take a very holistic approach on our campus because our students are in a very different situation because their services are quite different than their peers in the home district.
Okay, and your CTE program, you have quite a few Coatesville students in that?
We have almost 350 students from Coatesville in the program, and they thrive. Those students are finding work placement at one of the highest rates in the Commonwealth because of our support from Chester County, from our businesses. We're very closely connected to the Economic Development Council, so we are very strongly represented by Coatesville in that campus.
I hope so. I'd like to check it out.
Yeah, and that's for any board. We'd love to have you come visit. The kids would love to see you and do a tour of our Brandywine campus and see the kids in action.
Dr. Fiore, I think it's worth also mentioning that our students from Coatesville score very well on the NACTA exam, which is the equivalent of our Keystones and PSAs.
Yeah, they're
testing.
outstanding.
So they do very well.
Yeah, they are one of the highest achievers that have coming out of Coatesville on that Brandywine campus. It's hands-on learning. They want to be there. They choose to be there, and they do really great work. That's why I invite you to come see it. The kids would be really excited.
Excuse me, Dr. Fury, if I may. With regards to the students for the Child and Career Development Center who are currently waitlisted, is that exclusively Chester County school districts that's waitlisted, or are there like Lancaster County or Berks County students as well?
Yeah, there's actually students from the entire region, from Philadelphia, Berks, Lancaster, Delaware, Montgomery County, and they're all over the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so by utilizing the plan to try to open up additional satellite campuses, that will be able to incorporate those students from districts outside of Chester County as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That was my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We are grateful for the partnership. We're grateful for the services and everything that you bring to us. And I'm sure our families and our children are exceedingly grateful. We can only just hope for more. Thank you, and thank you.
Ms. Mills, if I may, just very quickly,
Yeah.
Dr. Fiore and Mr. Lubinsky, thank you for coming out this evening. I know that you're traveling around the county and you're out quite a bit, but thank you. Sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions as to what the IU does and how it does it, so this makes it well worthwhile. But we thank you both. I know firsthand how hard you gentlemen, as well as your staffs, worked to produce a 0% increase in the core budget and the occupational education budget. So we are grateful here at Coatesville for your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for having us, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have a second presentation, the 2023-2024 School District Budget Update with Catherine Van Voren and Lori Diefendorfer. Soon to be seen on the slides, right?
Okay, so let me get started. Good evening, school board directors and community members. Tonight, I would try to provide a brief update on our budget for 23-24 school year. Next slide, please. So we have been working to develop our budget using the same criteria as last year. We've recently completed a review of our staffing needs, and based on our review, you will see on the agenda tonight that we have requested the addition of 8 positions to better support our students. We are in the process of thoroughly reviewing the building and departmental budgets, and we will, this will allow us to firm up our estimated expenditures as we go through this process. And then finally, we're continuing to review our estimated revenues as we move forward to balancing our budget in June. Next slide, please. So what you see here are our preliminary expense projections for 23-24. We have our salaries and benefits at $73.3 million. Purchase services are projected at approximately $114.3 million, and this includes our expenditures related to the IU, legal services, transportation, charter schools, and our approved private schools. Next, you will see the supplies budget, which is at approximately $7.7 million. This includes our general supplies as far as gas, electric, books, and technology-related supplies. And then we have our other objects, which is approximately $7.3 million, and these are our dues, fees, claims and judgment, our legal fees, and our interest portion of our debt service. And then finally, we have our debt service at $13.3 million. So right now, our total preliminary expense projections is $219.9 million, and we will continue to review these expense categories throughout the remainder of our budgeting process. Next slide, please. This slide represents our preliminary revenue projections for 23-24 based on our funding sources. Currently, we have our local revenue source at $137.2 million, and this is before any recommendations for any increases in our millage rate. For our state revenues, we are projecting to be approximately $59.5 million. This is subject to change based on the proposed governor's budget. And finally, we have our federal revenue sources projected at about $13.7 million, and this will bring our total projected revenues at $210.6. So as our numbers, as you see our numbers currently, we are looking at a budget gap of about $9.3 million, and we will explore our options for balancing the budget, including use of our fund balance and potential tax millage increase. Next slide, please. So what you see here is our current millage rate of 41.219. We do know it could go up to possibly the adjusted index of 5.3%. We're obviously not looking to go that high, but we will come back with a recommendation to the board as to what we are looking to do over the next couple meetings. And then the next slide, please. So this has been our budget timeline. At the end of this month, we will be presenting our preliminary budget for adoption, and then our final budget will be adopted on our board meeting on June 13th. And any questions?
No questions? Well, thank you for that, keeping us up to date. We look forward to the end of the month. I'm sure everybody does. Okay, moving on to agenda items, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills payable list as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes. Yes.
And yes. B, approval of the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services Budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit CCIU Core Services Budget in the amount of $34,720,000, $34,720,500. I don't say numbers that big. $570, of which the Coatesville Area School District's projected contribution is $47,254 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Do we have any comments on this?
Just to follow up, that will remain the same as last year.
Just the same as last year. Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes. Yes.
And yes. C, approval of the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit Occupational Educational Budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit CCIU Occupational Education Budget in the amount of $31,574,393, of which the Coatesville Area School District contribution is $3,198,020 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Call for the vote?
Ms. Mills, I'm so
Go ahead.
sorry, but before you call for the vote, I think it's important to repeat that this number is for the students that we have that participate in the college, high school campuses. And that's a 3-year average for the number of students. So it's not like we're just paying for nothing. The students do attend those programs and do very well.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. D, preliminary budget adoption and notice of special meeting. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year and the notice of special meeting for June 13th, 2023, in accordance with Act 1 of 2006 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. E, removal of property tax liens for one parcel. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the removal of the property tax liens for parcel as recommended by the Chester County Tax Claim Bureau as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. F, Chester County Tax Claim Bureau Repository Sale. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the repository sale of the following parcel as recommended by the Chester County Tax Claim Bureau as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. G, Shutterfly Life Touch School Studios, North Brandywine Middle School Commission check. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve a commission check from Shutterfly Life Touch School Studios for a total of $320.92 to North Brandywine Middle School for the 2022-2023 7th grade school pictures as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. H, reading is fundamental, books and literacy resources donation. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the donation from Reading is Fundamental of 3 new books and literary resources for every Rainbow student in grades 3 to 5 to take home and own, valued overall at approximately $9,000 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Chester County Economic Development Foundation Transportation Cost Donation. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the donation from the Chester County Economic Development Foundation of $1,098 intended to reimburse transportation costs for North Brandywine's field trip to Alvernia University as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I'd like to thank everybody and all the donations there, greatly appreciated, and everything from the books to paying for a bus for a field trip. It's wonderful. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. J, substitute teacher service agreement for substitute services. Recommended action pending legal review that the Board of School Directors approve the 2-year agreement with substitute teachers service to provide substitute teachers, paraprofessionals, or support staff effective July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2025 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments about that?
Dr. Van Voorn, just as a point of clarification, in reviewing through the agreement, I didn't see anything, so I just wanted to be sure that I was on the same page. This is just a renewal of existing contract. I don't see any parameters within the contract being revised. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. K, creation of Director of Special Education position. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Director of Special Education position to report to Superintendent. This position will remove the special education duties from the Director of Pupil Services, thus making 2 separate positions, a Director of Pupil Services and a Director of Special Education. The salary and benefit range for this position will follow the Act 93 employee agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Before we,
Godfrey.
sorry, before we call for the vote, if Dr. Van Vorn can speak to the need of the separating the pupil services and the special education work to help the public understand. Oftentimes, we hear, here comes another cabinet or another administrative position. But I think it's important that folks understand why this work is being separated, and the focus and attention to that work. So if you could help explain that, Dr. Van Vorn.
Sure. Within the Director of Pupil Services position, we had someone that was covering discipline, our ELL population and the instruction. We had someone that was covering guidance, someone that was overseeing attendance, and then there's everything that's special education gifted in 504. As you've heard from Dr. Fiore, our special ed population is growing, as it is across the county and as well as the nation. So separating these two positions out will allow the Director of Special Education to focus all energy on the programming needs, which includes psychological services, placement, paperwork, oversight of the supervisors, as well as being the LEA at our out-of-district placements and keeping a stronger watch on our students that don't necessarily attend a school on campus, but are still our students nonetheless, but are attending a specialized program. And it will also allow that person to strengthen our EI program that we have coming in. So we want somebody to focus solely on those programs because that's where the majority of our needs are currently. This will then allow the other person to focus on pupil services, tie more in with the disciplinary strategies, the restorative practices, looking at the attendance, which is a severe need, is getting those kids to school and focusing on truancy. So allowing this new position would give each person, more of a chance to really hone in on the needs within those departments.
Thank you, Dr. Van Vorn, and I think it's helpful that the community understands why that role is important in shifting that special education work from the Director of Pupil Services. And I think it's one of those goes without saying, but noted that the work that Mrs. George has done managing all of those, quite frankly, very important responsibilities. It's appropriate. It's time that we allow Mrs. George to laser focus on the pupil services, to continue to do the work that's being done there, and allow whoever will be the Director of Special Education to focus on the work there, so that we can continue to move forward directionally in the work that's trying to be done. So thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. L, addition of one secondary ESL teacher position. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of one secondary ESL teacher position. This position will support the increase of ESL needs at the high school campus. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do we need any more explanation other than we need more, because we have more ESL students on the high school? We're good with that? Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Addition of 3 elementary teacher positions. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of 3 elementary teacher positions to support increased class size. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Van Vorn, you want to make a couple comments about that?
This is based on class size, so the good news is we have students coming into the district at the elementary level. So there are different swells that cover grade levels, almost bubbles, if you will, where they go up through the years, where 2 teachers at a grade level may be okay for 1 year, but the next group is bigger, so we need to extend out to 3 teachers at a grade level. So the first priority for us was looking at our in-house staff and looking at our class numbers, because we do have caps for class size, and the lower the grade, the lower the cap. So everyone needs to understand that as well. But when you look at expanding teacher positions, you have to look at the needs of the students within our buildings. So first we look at, can any of our staff be reallocated to cover that bubble in other grade levels? And if not, then we need to add positions. So at this point in time, 3 different schools are requiring a teacher within their program.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. N, creation of 1 life skills transition coordinator. Recommended action that Board of School Directors approve the creation of 1 life skills transition coordinator teacher position for the campus. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Van Voorn, you want to talk about that for a bit?
I don't know that it needs to be for a bit, but it's just a position that is being changed at the high school. We have some of our life school students that need those life skills. So within our transition program, we spend a lot of time and resources working with the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Allowing us to have a transition coordinator would be someone that is in that 18 to 21-year-old range, where they would partner with our local businesses and agencies to get those students the experience that they need to be productive members of society. So this is someone that can oversee that programming and make those partnerships within the community.
And very important and needed. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. It's on the bottom of the page. Addition of 2 special education teachers. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of 2 special education teacher positions. 1 position will support Calm Elementary Autistic Classroom, and 1 position will support the intermediate high school learning support caseloads. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments about this one? Call for the vote?
Yes. Yes.
And yes. P, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leaves of absence, transfers, changes of status, and corrections as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments about this? Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Any old business? New business? Public comment? Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. Regarding the report from Dr. Fiore, I think it would be interesting for the public to know the demographics of the students that attend the CCIU programs. For example, specifically, what are the demographics for students at the Technical College High School? What are the demographics for the Learning Center? And if we look at demographics, we can determine whether or not we're meeting the needs of all students. It doesn't surprise me that the need for special education and other services is increasing, but I'm concerned about decisions that are being made here and whether or not those concerns meet the needs of all of our students, particularly those that are minority, Hispanic, Black children. So if we could, if you could provide the public demographics on this very, very large budget that goes to the CCIU, that would be great. In terms of the budget presentation from Ms. Diefendorfer, thank you for the decision not to go beyond the Act 1 index. I'm reminded that our taxes have been raised consistently. I believe the only time taxes have not been raised was maybe, I think the first year Dr. Dunlap was our interim director, but people are struggling with the expense in taxes. And I know that the governor's budget from last year was the highest that any school district had ever seen, but I don't know that those numbers were in the budget when you all were, well, it wasn't because you all had to sign the budget first. But my point is, please be mindful as you consider raising taxes. I think you all approved a special education supervisor to be paid $500 every day he or she works. That's very, very concerning. We're coming off the heels of paying Dr. Dunlap's salary, which was $900 every day he worked. Only God knows, well, you know, how much money of that went to our tax dollars. We paid the principal at Callan Elementary School $500 a day every day she worked. So there's been a lot of money, it seems, going to salaries. And we understand people are needed to do work, but when we're paying supervisors and administrators $500 a day, it's very, very concerning. Thank you.
Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and I adjourn the Finance Committee meeting at 6:50. Moving on, I call to order the Education Committee meeting for April 11th, 2023. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Recommended action, approval of the March 14th, 2023 Education Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
It's not coming through.
Gentlemen, can we check to see if Ms. Harris is on a Zoom?
She's on Zoom, but
Ms. Harris, if you can hear us, you're muted.
because they can't unmute her. Can we?
Ms. Mills, I'll fill in until
Okay.
hopefully she gets with us.
They can.
So my vote is yes for approval of the minutes.
Thank you.
Let's move forward.
And mine is yes also. We have some presentations this evening. The first is the music program update, and Gabe Hughes will be doing that. Gabe?
Good evening. It's wonderful to see you all again. We were here a few months ago discussing a lot of things that were going to be happening this year, so we want to give you an update on what we've already done and kind of give you a little recap of what's going on in the future. So that way we can all work together and make great things happen for kids, because that's why we're here. First things first, the biggest thing that we said we were going to do, we were going to work our tails off to make happen, is increase in the music department enrollment. And right now, we are just happy to tell you that we have 18% increase in the involvement in the music department this year. So that is going from our numbers from last year to the numbers of this year. Kids who are currently enrolled in classes, enrolled in orchestra, band, choir, anything, going from all the way down, K through 12, everything. We are ecstatic about that. That is wonderful news, and we hope that you all are just as ecstatic as we are. We also went to work a lot on our communication to try and make sure that students and staff members and parents are all on the same page. It's very difficult to improve enrollment in a program if everybody doesn't know what's going on. So we've been working very hard to make sure that the parents know what our recommendations are for next year and what we want the students to be able to do, where we feel they are, that kind of stuff. Also, we've been working to try and talk amongst ourselves to make sure we're not missing kids in between our transition grades. So something that's very important as students travel from elementary school to middle school to high school, we lose about 10% just in general. Kids decide, hey, you know what, this isn't for me. I want to go play soccer. Cool, no problem. But we don't want to go and miss a student just because we didn't know a name that should have been there. So we've been working very hard with that to get all that information back and forth between the teachers, guidance counselors, and just making sure that all that information is accurate and attainable. As well, we were able to use the home access system. Oh, I'm sorry, what happened? Oh, I'm sorry, my fault. I was not in charge of the slides, my bad. Could you please, thank you so much. See, this is why I got my buddy here. All right, I think we're back. It's okay, stay right there. We'll catch up to that in 1 second. All right, so using the home access system, we've been able to put in the recommendations for the students, something that is very game-changing for at least us at the high school level. What we're able to do is we're able to lock in our recommendations for a student, and they are not able to take that off unless they come and talk to us and have a conversation, or talk to a guidance counselor and have a conversation. So the students know how much we love them and know how much they want. They don't just forget. They don't just, you know, if they want to go and do something else, we can talk to them and say, hey, listen, here's how we can work this out. Here's how we can continue you in the program, even if you may not be able to schedule this right here. All right, fine. Let's take some private lessons, and I'll see you in a year, or whatever. We can have those conversations, and that's a major thing that we were missing in our department. So I'm very happy to talk about that as well. We've also been trying to work on our community involvement. On the next slide, please, and thank you. All levels from elementary through high school have been participating in community events and festivals. East Fallowfield and Callan Elementary were at the community tree lightings. We had the Meister Singers and the high school band at their usual events, in addition to the Pavilion of Trees and the Callan Meeting House. There were also additional performing opportunities at the middle school level. There was a hockey game that the students were invited to participate in. There's also supposed to be a trip to Trills and Thrills to kind of give the kids an incentive to want to work hard all year, so that way they can have that benefit towards the end of the year. We also have students participating in the PMEA events. PMEA stands for Pennsylvania Music Educators Association. That is huge for us. One of the things that it gives them the opportunity to do is go and see other music-minded students and make friends, be inspired, and want to come back and do even better. You had students attend to Songfest. 4 students from East Fallowfield went to Songfest. All of the different elementary schools had students involved in different things. In the middle school and the high school, we have honors bands, Southern Chester County Honors Band, choir, Songfests. It said for us, we have more auditioned material, so I had a student who was able to go to a district band festival on trombone this year. A lot of really good opportunities, and we want to stop and take a moment real quick to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity by paying for those memberships for us to be able to be a part of this. Something that a lot of people don't realize is PMEA is kind of a pay-to-play thing, because the money that comes from our dues is what is used to make these opportunities available. So if you don't have a membership, you can't participate, and that's awful for our kids because, you know, they don't have more opportunities. So thank you very much. That was a huge game changer and a huge help for us. The other thing with that is it also gives us new resources and the ability to attend festivals and workshops and different things to get conferences, yes, to get more things that we can do, more bags, more tricks in our bags to try and help out and keep working to make great things happen for the kids. So, as I said, just want to say thank you very much. We appreciate it. Please keep that up because it's really, really crucial for our kids. If we go ahead and turn the page, last thing, we were looking into new course offerings. Now, a lot of our students didn't even know that some of the courses existed, so we worked very hard to try and give them all the options that were currently in our course catalogs and just things that they may not have been used to. I know that Rita recommended a lot of students for handbells. They didn't know what handbells were. It was great to have that conversation and say, hey, this is a Meister Singers tradition that you can be a part of. Now, you understand what a Meister Singer is, right? Now we had a whole nother conversation. Now we got kids in choir. It's great. This opportunity and these things are what's helping our students to feel that sense of, I want to be here, I want to continue, and I want to do. Now, not all courses are able to run. I do understand you cannot pay me $8 million to go and teach one child a handbell. I get it. It's okay. But we're going to keep working hard, and we're going to keep trying to do interest surveys and things to find out what they're really interested in, get those enrollments up, and then hopefully we'll be able to offer new and exciting things for the students in the future. Anything else? I'm sorry, my fault. I'm running my mouth. Please forgive me. If you got something to say, jump right in, please. All right.
You're good, Mr. Hughes. You're good.
So, as said, as you can tell, I am very excited. I love our students, and I love our music program. So it's wonderful to come in front of you and be able to speak to the great things that have happened. We want to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the future. We're going to be continuing to increase our music program involvement. We're working with administrators to try and work on increasing the weight of courses offered at the high school. Something that's always been an issue for my students especially is they go and say, well, why am I going to take band when I've got AP to take? It messes up with the GPAs. They want to go and show off their best foot. Now, a lot of the students have been getting smart now. They're learning how to work it out and say, okay, fine, well, if I take this here, I can do this here. And we're having those conversations. But being able to throw them a bone for playing the trombone for 12 years, and then being a monster, hey, you are not basic level. You are honors level. You should get honors level credit for what you're doing. So we're working really hard to try and get that kind of stuff put together so that way they have those opportunities. We want to level ensemble classes at the high school. At the moment, I'm not sure if you're aware, but all of my classes are 8 through 12. So the 8th graders that come in and the 12th graders that are about to graduate are all in the same room at the same time. I love them dearly, but that is quite the education gap. You wouldn't go and put a kid who's counting on their fingers in a calculus class. We do a lot of creative things. The kids are awesome at working together and helping each other out. As said, I do a lot of creative things to try to make that work, but it's something that we need to look at to try and move forward and be better. We're going to continue to look at performance opportunities, and we also want to look at the possibility of adding in 3rd grade strings and chorus. Well, sure, go, please, Bob, step on in.
If you don't know me, I'm April Mullen. I teach over at East Fallowfield. And we had put this as a goal that we would like to try to explore the options of 3rd grade strings and or chorus. And this is partly to kind of compete with charter schools. I know that Collegium starts chorus in 2nd grade and strings in 3rd grade. And that does kind of keep some kids there. And so offering that at the younger level here can also help kind of pull some kids back. But it's also a great way to start them a little bit younger. Band instruments in the 3rd grade, their hands are a little small. You can't get them smaller. The instrument's smaller, but strings you can. So we can pull those grade levels down. And chorus, they're perfectly capable of singing together in a large group at the 3rd grade level as well. This one, however, we're hitting a roadblock with scheduling. At the elementary level, our schedules are jam-packed. We won't have room to add these into our schedules with our current staffing. So that is something that we need to consider, whether we'll make this goal happen next year or whether we'll have to push it off a little bit longer until we have a little bit more leeway in our schedules with possibly some more staffing to make that happen.
Okay. Beautifully said. Like it. All right. In addition, with that adding those younger grades to kind of encourage them earlier, we also want to make sure that we're doing recruitment opportunities from all different levels for all of our different performing ensembles. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking a group of kids down to Rainbow Elementary School. We're going to go hang out with them during their morning band practice. So that way they get to see, hey, this is what I can be in 6 years. It'll be really fun and exciting. We're trying to make more of those opportunities happen. It is, once again, a difficulty with scheduling and things. As most of you all know, May is testing month, so I really can't do much then. But, trying to get these things in here in the month of April so that way we get some opportunities to see the younger students. They can have that opportunity would be great. In addition, make sure I got it. Sorry, I'm not sure which slide they are on. Okay, there we go. Gotcha. We also want to talk about adding a little bit more of an opportunity for students to begin at a later age. Everybody doesn't have the money or even the foresight to say, hey, I want to play an instrument in the 3rd grade or the 5th grade or that kind of thing. Sometimes they get to 7th grade and say, you know what, those music kids are kind of cool. I want to come and play. Once again, with the schedule the way it currently is, there are not opportunities for beginning students. You have students that have been playing 2, 3, 4 years by that point in time, and it's frustrating for new students to be in a classroom where everybody else is playing, fancy music and I'm still stuck on hot cross buns. We really want to give them an opportunity in a space that's going to speak to their needs and where they are so we can get them in, catch them up, and be able to have them enjoy, music in Coatesville because it's one of our big things. The same kind of opportunity, as I said, when we're talking about leveling the classes at the high school level, if I can go and teach 8th graders on an 8th grade level and 12th graders on a 12th grade level for 180 days, it leads to more interest and more excitement. So that whole idea of getting those students, in there is going to be really good if we are able to do that. Once again, I said that may be a staffing issue. We'll take a look at it when we get there, but we want to let you know that we're thinking about it, so when you start thinking about adding positions, y'all have it on your mind. Let's see, based on student survey result and new course offerings that we talked about, so we're going to take a look at the surveys and things from this year and see what the students are interested in. I'm not sure whether they're interested in anything besides TikTok at the moment, but we're going to find out and let you know. So as soon as they know, we can kind of start working towards what our staff can do to provide music experiences that they are interested in, so that way they'll stay in the programs and be able to work through. On goal 2, increase course offerings at the middle school and high school level, as said, general music was something that we liked in the past, just because it was an opportunity to catch music students just being music students. They didn't necessarily have to be in a choir, a band, or an orchestra, but it went and gave them an opportunity to continue learning, and we could go and cultivate those skills and kind of look and say, hey, wait a second, you might actually be good at, and then kind of push them in that different direction. Once again, a staffing issue if we were to go and add more classes on top of the poor teachers we have right now, but as I said, something that is a good catch-all to give them an opportunity. Now, general music that we're speaking about is not the old school sit down with a film and fill out the paper. No, we don't do that stuff no more. I don't know. Hopefully y'all know that by now, but no, that's not it. We like to go and kind of move it into where we are in music, all right? Music is electronic now, all right? We have Chromebooks. There are free softwares and things that they can work with and make music, create music, and work with it, even if they can't read music yet or they can't play an instrument yet. They can go and do these things. We're sitting here talking about things like advanced boom whackers. Kids love boom whackers. I don't know why. Pool noodle, smacking it on the floor is the most amazing thing in the world to them. Bucket drums, beating on your mom's trash can, things like that. All this stuff is exciting to them. So these are the things that we want to put in there, not, as I said, your old school, let's talk about music history from, all the way back at Gregorian chant. I mean, we'll say that for later. But as I said, these kind of things are what we're talking about when we want to say we want to give them that catch-all, that opportunity to be musicians without having to perform. All right? The last thing is to reevaluate our recruitment efforts during the previous years and kind of see what we want to do for the next few years. We went and put together a plan that was 2 to 3 years in last summer, so we're kind of looking to see, hey, where are we, and continue moving forward. As I said, the biggest piece we're going to need to do is, number 1, say thank you for the support you've already given us. Number 2, say we need your support to continue because, as I said, we can't do this alone. It's a whole village mentality here, all right? You all help us, we help you. The kids do great things. We send them out there and give them more opportunities to help back the community. It's awesome when you're able to go and say, hey, I need a band to come and do this. Sure, got you. Send some kids. It'll be great. So we want to go and have that opportunity to go and send kids back out in the community and have them help their fellow man. I don't know if there's anything else that you have to say.
You said a lot of
Okay, I'm going to be quiet. But if you have any questions, I'm gladly able to answer anything you'd like to know.
So, Mr. Hughes, congratulations on accomplishing your first goal where you had an increase in music participation, 18% across the district. I think that's phenomenal. Of the 18%, have you determined or have you been able to see if that group of students is continuing on for another year of doing music participation?
We are looking at that right now. We just started sending our lists and doing this, seeing what kids have scheduled. So we don't know that information quite yet, but we are looking into that right now. So I can't give you concrete numbers today, but if you ask me in a month, maybe I got you.
Okay.
All right.
No, it sounds good. I got one coming up to you, so don't worry.
Woo! Your other 2 were fun, so bring them on.
One other question, Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
You said kids like exposure. They used to play at the basketball games. I don't see the band there. Has that been outlawed?
The band has not been at the basketball game since I have been involved with the program, but what I will say is if that is something that is interesting to them, they would like to do, we can work that out. The one thing I will mention is something that I'm not sure you're aware of. We have 2 indoor programs that run throughout the winter and spring, a color guard and a drum line. That takes a lot of our kids, and they are out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at rehearsals and competing on Saturdays. We actually have the championship coming up this Saturday across the street in the intermediate schools. So A lot of times we have to pick one or the other at the moment, but if that's something that the students are interested in, hey, I'm willing to move towards it.
I'm just interested in the kids being exposed. For instance, if
That's true.
other schools have Meister singers, wouldn't it be nice to bring in some schools here and have our school, I can't call it a battle of the bands, but a group singing, you know, because kids are kids,
That would
and they
be
do like to
interesting.
be seen. And do you feel that the school here is supporting you? Sounds like you're making brick without straw. Are you getting the financial support you need to push out?
We are getting financial support, yes. Now, could it always be more? Of course. We could always use an extra dollar. But as I said, we have been supported very well. I mean, I just got a few instruments back today that were repaired thanks to the school district budget. So, I mean, as I said, we are getting supported. As I said, I will never turn away money. So if you got money to throw, please send it our way.
We're not throwing it. We just don't want
yes,
you to have
we
an
do feel
excuse.
supported, yes.
We don't
Can
want-
I speak to that a little
Sure,
bit more?
go ahead.
With the financial support, I mean, we also have seen an increase in the need for students to be using school-owned instruments where they aren't able to rent their own instruments. A lot of families, you know, are struggling after the pandemic. So any financial support that we can receive in helping students be able to have instruments in their hands will only help us increase these numbers even more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it'd be nice to see 'em when we had the prom, if you had a nice band, even outside.
Okay. Well,
Just a thought, just a
I was
thought.
like, listen,
Good thoughts,
that's a
good thoughts.
wonderful thought. I'll have to let the prom committee know.
Or handbells.
or handbells, you're right.
Yeah. Put a
Oh,
big
you could do
stone-
handbells on TikTok, and that'll get them.
There we go.
See, you're gonna get their interest there.
So how many would you, to make a sound, would you need, a half a dozen, 8 kids, 10 kids?
Yes. About 10 kids would be perfect.
Yeah, maybe you should find some graduates who used to do that would come back and enjoy maybe going into elementary schools and showing them the bells,
Okay.
talking about it.
Or
And-
steel drums.
Or the trash cans, steel drums. I like the
They're
steel
not
drums.
trash cans,
I
they're
know,
steel drums.
they're steel drums. I did get an email from Ms. Mohammed on your fundraiser
Oh, yes.
for the flowers. Do you want to give a pitch for that now, that you have the floor?
Oh, goodness, yes. Well, thank you ever so kindly. The Coatesville Parents Music Club is our booster club. They work tirelessly to make all of the magic happen behind the scenes that I go and say, hey, can we? And then it appears. They are a phenomenal group of parents, and they work very hard all year to fundraise and make money for our students. It costs approximately $600 a student to be in the marching band. The kids only pay $95. It costs about $300 to be a Meister singer. The kids only kids don't even pay for anything for Meister singers. We've actually gotten to the point that we have fundraised so well, they don't even have to pay for the dry cleaning anymore. It is a phenomenal program. Now, we are doing a few fundraisers. Unfortunately, we missed the Krispy Kreme. That's one of our big ones. We really have enjoyed that. But we are selling flowers for the spring. So if anyone is interested in purchasing flowers to plant, instead of, if you're not super, super early like my father-in-law who has all of his flowers picked out yet, you're more like me where you're still looking. We have a ton of different opportunities for you to take a look at. Our website, the cvillepmc.org, and it's on the Monday morning message that comes out from Ms. Snyder every week. As I said, all kinds of information and things for all of the different fundraisers we're doing. In addition to the flowers, we also sell discount cards all year for $10. We are always selling Wawa Hoagie coupons for $4 for a shorty. If anybody's known, that price went up again. I was hot, but $4 for a shorty, that's what y'all could get. And just anything else that we are doing is always on that website and well advertised. So thank you very much for bringing that up, and I greatly appreciate it. Ms. Muhammad is amazing.
Yes, I ordered my hummingbird gardens.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, you're dating yourself.
Oh.
There hadn't been a pep band at a basketball game since you played in 1968.
But he remembers it.
There are, all kidding aside, there are stricter regulations now by the PIAA as
okay.
far as those type of things. I'm not saying it can't happen. Mr. Hughes, man, you just keep on bringing it.
Have no choice.
You keep on bringing it.
Keep on making brick without straw.
Listen, I implore you to do a couple things.
Yes, sir.
One, keep pushing for those weighted classes for your elite groups. All right?
Okay.
Because I know what a stumbling block that is for you. So keep pushing for that.
Okay.
And secondly, keep getting in those elementary schools and North Brandywine and the 6th grade center. I get the 8th graders are here now because they're so impressionable. So keep pushing that. Dr. Van Vuren, I assume that the scheduling process at the high school has already begun or is in process?
It has already begun. I know there's been conversation even across other schools in Chester County where those that are in the marching band, because of the hours and the time and the weekend hours and the competition.
You know.
I do.
Yes.
My son was in a marching band, so my daughter's getting ready to join, so I'll be with you out there. But yeah, so I think it's worth a conversation, but we'll have to look to see what we have going on so far with the scheduling.
Yeah, sure.
So Dr. Van Vuren, for those of us who were born and raised here, one of the time-honored traditions of this high school is the Meister Singers. The numbers have not been where they have been previously. I'd like to have a report on at some point in time where we are with that. Again, for those of us who were born and raised here, we understand how important that is. And we cannot lose that group. And at one point in time, they were 100 and 125 strong. So I understand the barriers that are up against your program with students wanting to take AP classes. I don't know that the general public understands that band and Meister Singers are a class.
Yes.
So it takes a period out of your school day. And when you can take AP Calculus and you can score well on the AP exam and you can have credits given to you, that not only makes your college education go a little quicker, but it also saves mom and dad in the pocketbook too. So I know what you're up against, but keep pushing. Keep pushing, and this board will continue to do the best that we can to support you. And keep bringing it, buddy.
Thank you.
One more small question.
Yes, sir.
How many of your kids that are in the band and active in music have discipline problems? Do you find that you have a lot, or do you find that it's not that many?
It is
and
very
I have
few.
a reason for asking that.
It is very few, and part of that is the fact that students who are disciplined enough to pick up an instrument have already got the wiring to go and be disciplined about other things, including their studies, including their behavior, including, how they act at home. All of that goes hand in hand. The other thing is we don't give them time to go and start acting up because, goodness, you seen that marching band schedule? I'm about to say, Mr. Fisher used to tell me I'm furniture. I'm here all the time.
Mr.
You
Hughes.
answered my question. Thank you very much. I hope the board heard that.
You brought up a good point, and I'm very serious when I say this. Your marching band puts in more hours than any athletic team on this campus. Now, when I saw them jogging around the school and running the bleachers, but they do. It's a serious time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next presentation, Secondary Math Core Program Selection, Lynn Mancinelli and friend.
Mr. Hughes is a tough act to follow, so we're going to do our very best. We do know there's connections between the arts and mathematics, and students who do a great job in music and art that help support their learning in math as well. So we're all in this together. So I'm very pleased to be here tonight to give you an update on our secondary math core resource pilot process. And I'm grateful to have with me one of our cash teachers, Mrs. Becky Pearson. We realize we're both here. This is our 18th year, each of us, so we came at the same time, 2005. And I know Becky's been through several schools, the middle school, the intermediate high school, and now cash this year. So she's going to co-present with me a little bit later in our presentation. Change the slide, please. So we have lots of things that we are working on as far as academics in the district last year, this year, and next year moving forward. Our goal being to improve our outcomes for students In particular, tonight, we're going to talk about mathematics. So I have 2 key points here on the slide that I think we would like to keep in the back of our mind as we're talking about this process. Key considerations would be resources that provide flexibility for teachers and students to explore the continuum of instructional strategies and tools will provide a balanced approach to students' understanding and application of math concepts. And I think balance is a key word there. The next bullet also resonates in the world that we live in, which is very fast-paced and ever-changing. Because our capacity to deal with all things mathematical is changing rapidly, students must be able to bring the most modern and useful technology to bear on their learning of mathematical concepts and skills. So it's a difficult task to keep up with the world that we live in. This next list resonates with me, and I think it resonates with our teachers as well. We all know students and adults who struggle with confidence in mathematics, right? And so we want to make sure that we instill in our students confidence as math learners. So I've taken this from NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, 5 keys for growing confident math learners. First, everyone is a math person. Secondly, everyone is on a math journey. Third, mistakes help us learn. Number 4, everyone has rich knowledge bases and experiences. And number 5, mathematical thinking is more important than the answer. And they are some pretty heavy goals, right? But I think that the more that we can share these with our students, the more we can see them grow and improve those outcomes. So something else that we considered when we started our journey was thinking about how the utilization of a consistent core resource, beginning in grade 6 through Algebra 2, would be supportive of our students. First, it will provide equal access to grade level concepts, various learning activities, and overall instructional resources. We feel that the use of common language, algorithms, and strategies will strengthen student understanding and reduce confusion or misconception. And then lastly, a consistent use of multiple forms of assessment data. So we're looking at screeners, diagnostics, growth measures, formative and summative assessments. And all of these things coming through a single core resource we feel will benefit that growth, that sequence moving from 6th grade to Algebra 2. So here's a little background. I stood before you last year when we proposed a secondary math core resource pilot. So we started back in April, where the secondary math teachers explored different print samples, digital accesses, and presentations that were provided by various publishers. In May, they came together as a team to select 2 core resources to be piloted this year. In June, we came before the board to ask for approval of a pilot for those resources. It was granted, and so then in July, we kicked off with our initial training of the teachers who would be participating. Fast forward, so through the year, we have this team of teachers who have been piloting the resources, and so they came together in March 15th, on one of our early dismissal days. We came together as a team at the admin building to collaborate and then select what core resource we felt would best support our students moving forward. So again, a little bit of background. We had 2 different resources that we piloted throughout the entire year. We looked at Envision Mathematics and HMH Into Math and Into Algebra 1 Geometry and Algebra 2. We were able to have 2 teachers in each of grades 6 and 7, so 2 piloted Envision and 2 piloted HMH. And then we had 1 teacher for each pilot program in each of grade 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And Mrs. Pearson piloted Envision Algebra 2 for us here at the high school. The pilot teachers were invited to periodic check-ins, and we had some additional training over the course of the year, mostly integrated on our PD dates. So, as part of this process, we incorporated a rubric. So we presented the rubric to the teachers at the start of the pilot and asked them to keep that in mind and to sort of fill that out as they went through the year and also during times of collaboration. So there were 3 core areas of focus in our rubric. So we have Part A, content alignment to the PA core, concept development and rigor, emphasis on skill fluency, and then differentiation. Part B looked at the assessment data, embedded interventions, progress monitoring, and additional language support. And then Part C, professional development, digital resources for the teacher, as well as digital resources for the students, family support, teacher ease of use, student ease of use, and program technical support. So we asked teachers, over the course of the pilot to reflect on those things. Like I said, make some notes. And then when we came together March 15th, we brought all of the input from all 16 teachers together in a summary pilot, a summary rubric, and that's what we discussed. Now I'll ask Ms. Pearson to pick up from here.
So when we met together on March 15th, everybody brought their insight from grade 6 through Algebra 2. I had the privilege of piloting Algebra 2. So we were able to talk about the highlights and concerns with each of the programs, and as a group of teachers, we selected Envision on what we wanted to bring to you. We felt that it had a lot of positive things to bring to our district, so we're excited to bring it in front of you. So some of the things that we pointed out for the concept development and rigor, there was a lot of test prep. It also, the questioning was on all levels of the depths of knowledge. That was a huge strength with the questions. Differentiation, there was a lot of opportunity to both enrich our students and also, louder, I teach, but I'm not loud enough. So it had a lot of enrichment activities. There's extra practice. There's videos that students can watch to get extra support. A lot of options with reteaching, additional practice, vocabulary. There's also the opportunity that we could take some of the resources that they had online and we could modify it to meet the needs of our students, which was huge. The assessment data, when students were able to complete assessments online, it provided immediate feedback to both the students and the teachers, which was extremely helpful. There was also a lot of embedded interventions. So if a student took an assessment and they did not do well on it, we could automatically assign extra practice for the students at their level. So if they struggled with a certain topic, it would automatically assign a practice for that depending on the student. There's also progress monitoring. It kept track of their mastery over time, which was a nice feature. A lot of professional development was available with the Envision program. There were videos that we could watch at the beginning of the lesson to help us teach it through, and then the trainers were a huge help too. If we needed help with them, we just reached out to them via email, and they were able to answer any questions we had. My favorite part, because I'm a technology person, was the digital options that they had available. For a teacher, there were videos, lesson plans, the online teacher book. My favorite part was the question generator, not just the test generator, but for the worksheets, I could modify it. If I didn't like a certain problem, I could dump it and then bring something in that I liked. For the digital learning, we found that students could easily access the assignments through Canvas, which I really loved since we, as a district, have Canvas. So students could just go into Canvas, and it saved a lot of clicking to go through the Envision website. They could access their assignments and get their grades and scores right away on there. There's also a lot of support for students and families. There's videos called Virtual Nerds where parents and students could watch them together, which will show students if they didn't quite get the lesson in school, they could watch it at home to try to figure out and get that extra support. I found the program easy to use. I'm the technology go-to, and Jim D'Angelo didn't have to come running to me because he was able to use the program himself with not a lot of questions. Students at first had a hard time going through Envision just because it was several clicks, but once they got the hang of it, it was easy enough, and with the Canvas integration, it made it super simple. And then there's always program support. You just have to reach out via email to the consultants, and they were able to help us.
And that takes us to our last chart here. So we would propose that you would approve a 6-year adoption of the resources. This would be for grades 6, 7, 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. We have some resources, of course, that we're able to use through our pilot, and then we would propose that we purchase more. The purchase of these resources would include digital licensing for the students, as well as in grades 6 through 8, they have a consumable workbook that their work is done, paper, pencil. For Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, there are typical hard copy textbooks that would be in the classrooms, as well as the digital courseware. And of course, this would also include an initial program activation and then also implementation essentials training as we move forward. So the cost for this 6-year proposal is $400,657. Does anyone have any questions?
One question I have is, we have a lot of students coming in from various parts of the country, of the world, and some of them haven't had any formal education or been to formal schools. And I'm wondering how you handle that.
One nice thing that we're considering along with Envision is they have another tool that students could use in addition with their special education. So if we have any students who are in special education needs, the teachers could kind of share a platform and they could learn about Envision right alongside the general education teachers. So that would help for students with those difficulties. Students who are coming in, are you picturing with where language is a barrier or just experience maybe? In general, you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying.
Well, again, another nice thing about, and I think a lot of programs have this now, teachers will have access to all the programs that come before. So if Mrs. Pearson was teaching Algebra 2, on her dashboard, she can access Algebra 1, Grade 8, Grade 7, and Grade 6. So in past years, she would have just gotten the Algebra 2 hardback teacher implementation guides, right? And that would have guided her instruction. She will have the ability to assign to students and for her own referencing class to back up to all those earlier grade levels. So if we did have students coming who were, had significant gaps, that would be something that would be helpful for the teachers to help present them to the students.
You agree with that, Ms. George? Okay, good enough.
And another nice thing is there's projects and things that are incorporated in Envision. I think ways to help encourage students to see things that are part of their everyday life. So maybe even a student whose background was a little bit less than others would get exposure to some of those things.
And I applaud you for teaching conceptualization. There are kids who can do Algebra 2 and can't estimate how much paint it takes for one wall. So conceptualization is very important, so I applaud you ladies for that. And it's hard to take somebody from 0 to 6. In other words, a kid that's never had formal education or maybe never been past the 3rd or 4th grade, and that is happening right here.
Right.
If you guys are bringing that along, you got my vote.
I'm sorry.
I do have
okay.
a quick question. First, thank you for the information. Two, my question is regarding the textbooks and the digital textbook. So I just want to make first clarifying. So you're saying you would get both? There would be a hardback textbook and a LMS with the same textbook information, or it would be one or the other?
So in 6 through 8, they actually get a write-in, like a companion, a journal. So that's consumable. And they also get the digital platform. In the upper courses, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, there's no write-in journal. They get what we normally see as a regular textbook, but they also get the online platform. So all grades have online. 6 through 8 has a write-in companion, like a workbook, where the upper grades have a textbook.
So my question is there a reduction in cost to just doing the digital platform? Because it would seem to me that as upgrades are made and changes are made, that's obviously being able to be implemented and turned over faster than printing and ordering and purchasing textbooks. So is there, and the answer may be no, I'm just asking, is there a benefit to having both? Does it make sense to just have the LMS, the digital? And as programming and things change, it's an easier deployment?
To be honest, some of Envision is a 2024. It's brand new with just a slight, improvements from things on the 20. I don't know what the 2020 version.
Yeah, we piloted the 2020 version, but since they have the 2024 coming out, then the idea is to go ahead and grab that newer curriculum. To speak with the textbooks, I know it's helpful in my classroom to have a classroom set. It's not always nice to have out the Chromebooks open plus the notebooks. So if you have that textbook physically on your desk and you're reading the text rather than taking a break from screens and have your notebook right next to it, pulling the problems right from there, the students can see the example. They won't take the textbooks home, they'll stay under my desk. Right now, if you go into my classroom, they're all under the desk. And then online, when they get home, they can pull up the online textbook and look at the online textbook.
Okay, thank you. So that explanation does make sense. So appreciate that.
And I think if we had a sixth, seventh, or eighth grade teacher here, I feel that the pencil paper companions, where they're working, all together on that same book in those earlier grades, I think that they see a benefit in that as well. Then they have to kind of make the transition to using a typical, hard copy textbook when they get to Algebra 1.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to refer back to slide number 6, where you were speaking regarding the pilot teacher participation.
Yes.
Where you were comparing the Envision with the HMH math and the AGA. So you said 2 teachers in 6th grade and 7th grade. So did one in each grade do Envision and then one in each grade do
Actually,
the
we're able to
HMH?
have 2 for each program in 6th and 2 in each program in 7th. So it was
Okay.
a total of 4 there. And then we only had 1 per program in those upper courses.
One per
So we had-
program?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
We had a total
okay.
of
So
16
one was
teachers.
doing Envision in the upper grades, and then one was doing the AGA then?
Yes, and
Okay.
they generally sometimes, like Ms. Pearson did a lot of collaboration with the geometry teacher of Envision, or the Algebra 1 teacher of Envision.
Okay. And other than what was highlighted in the slides regarding Envision, was there anything else that stood out that made Envision come out on top over HMH in that retrospect?
I would say one thing was, I think the digital platforms seemed to be more robust. I think teachers found it a little bit easier to use and to sort of work their way around. That's one thing that stands out to me. I feel like HMH, they had a few concerns.
Okay.
That was a little bit less robust. I think some of the projects and some of the 3-act tasks and things.
There's a STEM project with each chapter, which is great.
In the Envision one?
In Envision, some student choice. There's a bit of student choice when it comes to the projects.
Okay.
Encourages collaboration and
Yeah.
Okay.
Envision also has a solve and share that is at the beginning of a lesson. So instead of having a teacher hand you what it is you're doing, it gives them a chance to try it with a peer,
Okay.
which is nice. So in my experience, that's almost made learning more concrete because it's not coming from the teacher.
Oh, okay.
It's coming from their peers and from them using hands-on. So that's also a nice piece of collaboration that they have within that program.
We were looking for something balanced, I think, right, with something that had something like Dr. Van Voorn just described, and then also something explicit and enough practice. So finding the right, and then something engaging. And I think there's some engaging parts to Envision as well, like the projects that Ms. Pearson mentioned.
Okay, great. Thank you for elaborating on that.
So, Ms. Pearson, you've been teaching math a bit.
yes.
So, and I trust your personal observation. What did you observe from the kids, their learning, as you were piloting Envision?
So as I was piloting, I think it brought together a lot of the pieces that I like to bring into my classroom. So the collaboration, talking about working through that first initial problem, letting them just take some time to solve it out. So then when I bring that lesson in front of my students and I start to teach it, the connections are made and it's able to apply to them. I also, like I said, I'm a technology person, so the availability to use it on the computer and for students to have access both at school and at home is a huge piece. So I think the students really were able to learn a lot through the different types of problems. I also, each lesson has like real world problems, real examples that can apply to them. Like today's problem was playing the guitar, so I can bring that in. Who plays the guitar? Who uses a capo? Dealing with the frequency of the guitar and all of that. So the problems are good. They relate to the students, and the students seem to be engaged in what they're learning.
Well, thank you.
I think you would appreciate the data that comes from it as well. There are some nice reports that come based on standard-based reports and other things that a teacher, for any assessments that are done, you know, on their device, they can get very quick access to that.
So you know how the kids are doing.
Yeah.
So you can,
And if they're solving one of the problems on the Envision website and they don't know what they're doing, there's a little button that says, "Help me solve this."
Oh.
And they can work through and solve it. And then for the homework assignments, they get several attempts. If they don't get it right the first time, they can then click on that, "Help me solve this." It will walk them through step by step. And then they'll give them another example just like it that they can then apply what they just learned from that little help.
and some kids learn better that way.
They do.
They do. Good. Well, we're optimistic. Thank you, ladies. Any other questions? Okay. We have
Just a
another-
quick comment, Ms.
Sure.
Mills. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for your hard work and your rigor in following those programs.
And I should say thank you to all the teachers. I only have Ms. Pearson here with me tonight, but
Right.
I mean, it was a big endeavor we had 16
sure
teachers
is,
pilot.
yeah.
That was almost every teacher in 6th and 7th grade, and then a good subset thereafter. And everybody was a very willing participant in our discussion. So we know, piloting's hard. Sometimes you pilot an entire year, and then your resource isn't the one chosen. And so, we really appreciated the effort that all the teachers put in. And I know they've learned and taken some things away, even if they weren't, even if their resource wasn't selected. So I appreciate their help.
So do we. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another presentation, NAACP Partnership, Cassandra Jones. And friends.
So I'll apologize in advance. This is presentation number 5 for you guys. I'm sorry.
Pull the mic down.
I can't hear you.
Yep, go ahead.
No, I said I'll apologize now. This is presentation number 5 for you guys.
Oh, it's okay. Good stuff.
I want to start by thanking you guys for allowing me the opportunity to share some information on an up-and-coming partnership that we're looking to form with the Coatesville branch of the NAACP. I do have some of the NAACP members here with me tonight. Standing next to me, I have Ms. Cassandra Burgess. She is the co-chair of the WIN committee. WIN stands for Women in the NAACP, and one of their primary focuses is on educational equity. So she's here with me tonight. This really stems from a conversation that her and I had when we were working through the process of developing our comprehensive plan. One passion that she has is literacy, and that's a passion that we share. We also share a common interest, which is our students. And so we're looking to bring together a program that will be mutually beneficial in moving our goals forward. All right, so as we get started, I just want to kind of highlight the benefits of family, school, and community partnership. Partnerships are really essential for helping all students achieve at their highest level. Research shows that students can benefit from strong partnerships in a variety of ways. They tend to earn higher grades, attend school more regularly, stay in school, and are generally more motivated. Foundations for academic success begin in early childhood, so before our students even enter the doors on that first day of kindergarten, and are further developed during their elementary years. Conversely, patterns of failure and disengagement also begin early. And so the key as we're looking to expand our community partnerships is to form partnerships that really focus on meeting the needs of our students very early on so that we can start our students out on a very positive path moving forward. Students who experience success at the elementary level typically go on to continue to experience success as they progress through their educational career. Next slide. There are 4 organizational principles that can serve as the foundation for the development of a strong school, family, and community partnership program. The first is employing teamwork, and that really just speaks to the necessity and value of engaging various stakeholders. That would include teachers, administrators, parents, and community members. The second is writing annual goal-oriented action plans, and for us at the district level, it's tying the partnership and the work that we're doing as part of the partnership to our comprehensive plan. There are two goals that the proposed partnership will address, long-term goals for the district, and those include goals related to equity and student achievement. The plan also, though, has to be mutually beneficial for the partnering organization, and you'll see on a later slide the vision and mission of the Coatesville branch of the NAACP and how that ties in with both equity and student achievement. The third is using a multidimensional definition of involvement or engagement, and what that means is that we need to have a variety of activities included in our partnership. And currently, what we're looking to do is create a volunteer program, but we're also looking to then expand that to provide supports for learning at home. So we're kind of looking at phasing in and building our program over time. And then the fourth is evaluating partnership practice. And that really just means that over time we need to be evaluating the effectiveness of our partnership, identifying strengths and weaknesses, looking at the outcomes. So we have goals, those goals need to be measurable, and we need to make sure that we're attaining those. And really it's just ensuring continuous improvement, that the partnership is meeting the needs of our students, and that we're continuously improving upon the work that we're doing. So I referenced equity, and I feel like this has come up a few times in different presentations throughout the night, but COVID-19 has certainly had a significant impact on educational equity. We know from early studies that for many students, the educational gaps that existed before the pandemic in access, opportunities, achievement, and outcomes are widening. Many of these impacts are falling disproportionately on students who went into the pandemic with the greatest educational needs and fewest opportunities, many of them from historically marginalized and underserved groups. Compared to 2019 before the pandemic, and all of the data that I'll reference in the presentation moving forward is national data. It's not specific to Coatesville. I think what you will see is many of the issues that we experience here in our district are not exclusive to our district, but they're things that we're seeing across the nation. So average scores declined in both subject areas and grades, and I'm speaking specifically to reading and math, and we're going to be looking closely at grades 4 and 8. Average scores declined for most states in both subjects and grades, and students' confidence in mathematics and reading skills declined overall. Okay? And that data is coming from the NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Okay? The graphical representation that is up here on the board is specific to reading. It's from the NAEP, and what you can see is that in grades 4 and 8 nationally, the average scaled score dropped in both grade levels. The range is from 0 to 500, so the average in each grade level is very low when you consider the range and the highest possible score. In grade 4, the percentage of students in the nation who performed at or above the NAEP proficient level was 32% in 2022. That means that 68% were not proficient. In grade 8, the percentage of students in the nation who performed at or above the NAEP proficient level was 26%. That means that 74% were not proficient. And again, this data isn't exclusive to Coatesville, this is national data. And really, we were experiencing a literacy crisis pre-pandemic, and obviously the pandemic has exacerbated that. One thing that I want to highlight is that scores declined for most subgroups in 2019 and 2022. Black, Hispanic, and Native American students received the lowest scores. Students in these subgroups have been behind for years. They were behind before the pandemic, and now, in many cases, they're even further behind. Next slide. The pandemic has also exacerbated a shortage of teachers. This is something that we're not only experiencing, but other entities are as well. During the CCIU presentation, Dr. Fiore mentioned that they're experiencing a shortage of teachers, particularly at the Learning Center. Those teachers need to have a special education certification, and that's one of the fields where we're seeing the largest shortage of certified qualified teachers. The shortage is more severe for certain subject areas and in some geographical locations. It's especially severe in schools with high shares of students of color or students from low-income families. The shortage is a function of teachers leaving the profession, fewer people choosing education as a career path, and unfortunately the declining status of teaching as a profession. Next slide. Now we're going to take a closer look at Pennsylvania's teacher workforce. Pennsylvania is currently facing an educator workforce crisis. The overall numbers of new educators entering the profession continues to decline, and the rate of educators leaving the profession continues to accelerate. Staffing shortages are felt most acutely by schools like ours, serving the highest proportions of low-income students and students of color. The demographics of our educator workforce have not kept pace with our changing landscape. Public school students are more racially and ethnically diverse than our teachers. Research has conclusively demonstrated that students perform better when they have access to teachers that share their race and language backgrounds. A lack of diversity within the educator workforce hinders our school's ability to help students reach their full potential. Students of all backgrounds benefit when exposed to diverse students and staff. Next slide. So I want to go over our proposed volunteer program. So in partnership with the local NAACP, the district is proposing a pilot volunteer program to occur during our K-5 Title I summer program, which I am responsible for organizing and overseeing. The goals of the program include strengthening the literacy skills of our most vulnerable students, as well as filling gaps in staffing and increasing representation within our schools. The program will include up to 18 position volunteers recruited by the local NAACP. Volunteers will participate in an orientation, which will be 1 hour long. We'll go over topics such as confidentiality, and they'll receive training on research-based instructional strategies to help strengthen students' skills in reading. And that'll be approximately a 3.5-hour training. So in total, they will receive 4.5 hours worth of training before they begin working with our students. Next slide. Each volunteer will be paired with a classroom teacher for the duration of the summer program. Volunteers must commit to working directly with students a minimum of 2 hours per week. Volunteers will be supervised by lead teachers. I actually have 2 for my program this year, and I'm hoping next month we'll be able to come back and present on the program that we have planned for our students. As well as myself, I'm the administrator on assignment. Someone actually asked me the other day what an AOA was, and I was like, well, that's me. Volunteers will be provided with instructional resources that align with our district curriculum and intervention resources, and we've already made a request for materials through a grant that the district has received annually to support summer programming. So hopefully next month we'll also be bringing that forth for approval. Surveys will be distributed to administrators, teachers, students, and volunteers to help assess the effectiveness of the program. Next, I want to go over applicable board policy. While we don't necessarily need approval for this program, we do need to make sure that we are complying with the applicable board policy. So the relevant board policy would be 916. The volunteers for this program would fall under the classification of position volunteer. Each prospective position volunteer shall complete and submit a volunteer application, and that would all be included in the administrative regulations. The names of all position volunteers shall be submitted for approval by the superintendent or designee. The names of all guest volunteers shall be submitted for approval by the building principal or designee, and upon approval, volunteers will be added to a list of approved volunteers. Approvals shall be required prior to beginning service as a volunteer. Next slide. Prior to approval, all position volunteers shall submit the following information. So they will need to submit all of the necessary clearances. So they will need the PA Child Abuse History Certification, the PA State Police Criminal History Record, a disclosure statement for volunteers, and because of the nature of the work that they'll be doing, they'll also be required to submit a federal criminal history report because they'll be working directly with our students in an instructional capacity. They'll also be required to complete a TB test and provide the results of that. And then obviously those, the record check and whatnot will need to be updated on an annual basis. Next slide. Supervision, each volunteer shall be under the supervision of a designated school administrator, teacher, or other member of the school staff. In this case, the volunteers will be supervised by our lead teachers as well as myself. Training, we mentioned that volunteers will attend orientation and training sessions. That is required. So this is the language directly from the board policy, which says shall, but as part of the program, we're requiring that the volunteers receive that training. And then with confidentiality, again, that's a topic that we'll cover in the context of orientation, but it's going to be very critical, especially given the fact that the volunteers are from our community, that they maintain confidentiality. And then here I have the vision and mission of the local NAACP. I don't know do you want to add anything or comment? I am. After this, it's Q&A.
I like to say, my name, of course, is Cassandra Burgess. And I like to say about 3 years ago, the WIN committee, we were addressing the issue of literacy. And we drafted a letter and sent it to Mr. Hanna. And we were in the process of trying to work out something. We didn't know what at the time, but we knew that there were drastic needs for intervention for students who were non-performers. Then COVID came along. So when COVID hit, of course, wow, we knew our kids were really behind. So I just like to say thank you to the board. The NAACP says thank you, and WIN says thank you for recognizing that we have to all work together to start making changes in our schools. We know that you can't do it all, but we look forward to the summer program. We are just elated to be partnering and having a part in bringing community members together, because we're approaching community members that have daycares, that have after-school programs, that have vacation Bible schools in the summer. We're trying to bring those people on board as some of the 18 people that are going to be trained, so they can take that information back to students that they are impacting during the summer. And that's the beginning of something that could snowball. And I am just so pleased. The NAACP is so very pleased. And the WIN committee will continue to utilize all the learned skills during the summer to go into the schools, go into some of the other programs, and to continue to tutor students. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you again from the board.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I see it.
I have one question.
Yes.
Some of the board might, this is my own feeling, that they were wondering about the capabilities of people that Ms. Donna Rowland was bringing in here. And I just would like for you to tell them what some of your capabilities are. Without, you don't have, just so for my interest.
Well, I'm a former principal. I lived in Connecticut for 43 years, and I moved here in 2010. I was born and raised here. So I moved here when my mother passed, and I have a brother who's challenged. So I felt that I just needed to come this way to make sure that he was all right. Upon coming here, I was going around knocking on doors, any sign that I saw that said children, like child guidance or whatever, because I didn't know what they did. I wasn't familiar with what was going on in the neighborhood. But my interest then, because, you know, I just felt like I had to give back. So Mr. Brown and some other gentlemen were involved in a school program. They were going into the schools, mentoring. And there wasn't a girls' component. So there were 3 of us that got together, and we created a girls' component. Well, 2 of those women were working, and I was the one that was free to go into the schools. But we went into Reeseville, North Brandywine, and Scott. We did those 3 schools. Well, after that was over, the kids did not want us to leave them. So we started a reading program. So I approached the principal at Reeseville, And I asked the principal if Coatesville Area School District had a reading program. I was informed that they didn't. So I said, well, if we start a reading program, would you support us? And he said he would. So he loaned us his 30 laptops in the car. I don't know whether he should have. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it. He's still
I just
working
wanted to
for
get
the
an idea. I appreciate that. And thank you, Donna Rowland. And I hope you keep this caliber up so we don't get no complaints from the peanut gallery. Okay? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Harville, I'd just like to say that, you know, the people that are on board, we have a lot of professionals. And I just got a call today from Dr. Smith telling me that he's on board to help also with the summer program. So, yeah.
Right.
You're
And
in
thank
good
you very
hands.
much for having the insight to do that. You have my vote.
So it's a great start. One summer, then the world, right?
That actually was going to be my question. You know, I know you said you were going to do this for the summer, but are you looking to have it transcend the summer and maybe include it somehow during the school year?
Well, that was, I'll answer part of it. That was always the plan. The
Okay.
plan was always to work with students in the community,
Okay.
wherever.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Can you just use the microphone for me so I can hear you?
Sorry,
Thank you.
Sorry about that. That was the plan. The plan was always to mentor students in the community. The summer program, it just gave us, because when we drafted the letter, we asked Mr. Hanna if there was somebody at the school that could teach us the skills that we needed to teach reading, because we didn't know how to teach reading, so I didn't know what the school district had in place. At that time, I was told they really didn't have anything in place, but now you do. So,
Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you.
I do want to add in terms of like a long-term plan. We are looking at the training that we're providing to the volunteers. If that's successful and it's effective, and obviously the individuals participating are able to take that knowledge, turn it around to benefit our students, actually adapting that particular training and providing it in our community to parents that are interested. Obviously, a 3.5-hour session is not manageable for most parents, but we could break that up into smaller trainings that would be topical in nature and then kind of present. I know we've discussed actually physically getting into our community, not doing it in a school building, but going into some of the available spaces within the community. I know there's a bookstore that recently opened on 30. I believe she's interested in partnering and allowing us to use that space for some trainings. So we're kind of looking ahead, but obviously we want to try this out first. The summer program was ideal because it's smaller scale, it's all in one building, it would be much easier to oversee, and then the number of volunteers, we wanted to ensure that was manageable so we could provide high quality training and support throughout the summer.
Ms. Jones, I just have one question and a comment. So the comment first, thank you, and thank you to all of you for the work. I just want to clarify, I believe I heard the number was 18 for the summer program of volunteers?
It is 18. Right now, the K-5 Title I summer program, we've put caps and have certain criteria for eligibility this year to really make sure that we're servicing our neediest students that are most vulnerable. And so we will have 3 classrooms in each grade level this year. 6 grade levels, that's 18 teachers. So I would like to pair a volunteer up with a classroom teacher and have them spend the duration of the program with that teacher. And it's really about relationships first. And I feel like if the volunteer and the teacher can form a really strong relationship, then that could even carry over into the school year. Like, I formed a really great relationship with Mrs. Maloney. She's going to go back to Kings Highway when the school year starts, and I want to continue to volunteer in her classroom.
Yep.
So that's kind of where it stemmed from.
Perfect. So my question is, have those 18 been identified? And so the reason why I'm asking the question is understanding the process, right? On this time of the year, folks getting clearances, you know, generally it's a little slower in the spring getting into summer as folks are applying for jobs for the fall. And typically not so much the FBI and the state police check, but the child abuse generally tends to take the longest of the 3. And so the reason why I'm asking if we identified those folks in that process is starting so that there's no delay in the implementation and the rollout for the summer program.
I do believe they've been working on securing volunteers already. I don't know that we have the full 18 secured, but I believe you're working on it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then we'll work on a system for management in terms of tracking the clearances. Obviously, we'll have a approved list that will go to Dr. Van Born for approval. So now it's about creating the systems around it to manage it, and obviously then putting the training together, working out a schedule for the training and so forth, and then managing schedules at the building level too, because we talked about the need for consistency. These are our most vulnerable students. They already likely have a revolving door of people in and out of their lives, and so we want the volunteers to be consistent.
Yeah, I want to be clear about my question. I'm not questioning. What I don't want to have happen is folks get excited about the program and we have to delay because we're waiting on process.
Correct.
So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, our summer program this year, it doesn't start until after the 4th of July holiday. So typically before with ESY and summer programming, sometimes we start it the week before, then we would have off. It would be kind of like disjointed. Now we're just starting after that 4th of July holiday. Again, so it gives us a little bit more time, but I completely understand what you're saying, that it may be difficult to acquire those clearances within the required timeline.
Yeah, it just handcuffs us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not on us, it's not on the individual, it's the process of the state and the requirements, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Jones, thank you very much to the members of the NAACP that are here tonight. Thank you very much. As we move forward, I think this is a great launch pad, right? We use the term pilot program. This is a great launch pad into more broader opportunities within the school district. So I would implore, as we continue to look forward to us developing a program like this that's more sustainable than one summer, looking later down the future, right? What does this program look like 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and how we can build upon that is, and I know Mr. Brown has mentioned this several times, is I would implore us to continue to look into opportunities to broaden this program into opportunities with universities like Cheyney, Lincoln University, Westchester University, to try and, it's great to have the local volunteers, but also get some individuals within our school district so they can start to relate to some of our students as well.
I know
Thank you.
one thing we discussed potentially is student volunteers as well. We have students that are interested in going into the field of education, and so looking at how we can utilize them. Students that are here at our campus that are looking to go to college to become a teacher, or to work in some field where they'll be serving students, and so kind of capitalizing on that. We have the Teacher Academy, but again, like long-term, needing to really work out the details and the logistics of that. Even looking at like internships during the day where students can go out and work during their school day and earn credits, and that's something Heather Messenger and I have discussed briefly. So I think it can become much, much more than we've presented tonight, but I think kind of starting small to hopefully ensure that the program is successful is ideal, and then kind of assessing, at the end of the summer and determining where we can kind of go moving forward. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Before I move on to agenda items, I want to do a sound check. Does Mary Harris have to unmute, or are you going to unmute her? She's going to have to? All right. So, Ms. Harris, if you hear me, please unmute so you can vote. Hopefully the sound's doing good. There she goes. She's unmuted. Thank you. Moving on to agenda items. A, 2023-2024 Legal Services Consultation Agreement, Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams, LLP. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Legal Services Consultation Agreement for the 2023-2024 school year with Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams, LLP at a cost of $6,500 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I think that was a second. And Sweet Stevens is the firm that works with our special education. Is that correct, Dr. Van Born?
That is correct.
Thank you. Let's call for the vote.
Yes.
And yes.
Ms. Mills, let me make it a little easier on you. Let me
Yeah.
just substitute, please.
Okay, yeah, it's,
Thank you.
it's garbled.
Can you give me 1 second, because I have to change the voting map?
Yeah, she's gonna,
Just to give you access.
okay, ready? Student teaching placements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the student teacher placements as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. C, secondary math core program adoption. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the adoption of Envision Math as our core resource for mathematics instruction in grades 6 through Algebra 2 at an additional adoption cost of $400,657 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
This is what we just heard earlier that we're taking the vote on now. Call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Mary Harris, do you want to try to say yes again? Okay, it's not coming through. And yes. Okay, out-of-state field trip request, Air Force ROTC. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the out-of-state field trip request from the Air Force ROTC as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. E, out-of-state field trip request, Air Force Junior ROTC. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the out-of-state field trip request from the Air Force Junior ROTC as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. F. Thank you. Independent contractor, contract Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the independent contractor contract with Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health for psychologist overflow support as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Proposed settlement agreement 1001839. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the settlement agreement for student 1001839 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. H, CASD Language Instruction Educational Program Draft. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Language Instruction Educational Program as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Ms. George, this is the plans you've been working on? Okay, and now we are moving it forward. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Any old business? Did I miss one? Informational items. We have the enrollment report on the board docs for your review. And we have the Connecting Coatesville event information that will be this week, correct? Thursday is our, do you want to take a moment and tell the focus of it?
Mrs. Mills, I just handed it to you. It's to your right.
Go ahead.
So the Connecting Coatesville event is a Title III event. It's a parent activity. There'll be food, there'll be speakers, there will be activities for students, and there will be vendors where parents can come and get additional information about the district, about questions that they may have, you know, to get supports for their students. So it's going to be a fun evening, lots of fun things to do. So we hope that we'll have, I think we have, our last count was what, 200 people responded.
But there's
that
still
they would be
seats.
attending.
Keep signing up.
Keep signing up. There'll be plenty.
All are welcome.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Is there any old business? New business? Public comment? Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. For the math presentation, I have it. It's 13 pages long. I'm wondering if the $400,000 cost is included in here. I mean, obviously, I haven't read the entire PowerPoint, but I plan on doing that. It seems like the district is sometimes very, very good about adding cost, and other times it's not included at all. And so $400,000 for 6 years is a lot of money. However, it is an investment in our children. A couple of things that concern me about this particular program is I heard the teacher say that she was technology focused. A lot of students with IEPs are not technology focused, and it seems like the district is pushing towards all things technology. I'm advocating for an 8th grader who is flunking science. He probably will fail science. Many, many problems, including trauma, a history of trauma, and he said repeatedly that he prefers papers, hard copy. I don't know that that's happening. So as you make these decisions, would you please be mindful of the fact that while teachers and administrators may love technology and why it might be a focus for them, it's not always a focus for our students. And students, it appears that post-COVID technology has been mandated throughout this district. So I would ask you to please consider the importance of meeting, especially students with disabilities, meeting them where their needs are and making sure that we are doing everything within our means to help them learn, because students do better when they can. In terms of, well, I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
And thank you. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and I adjourn at 8:15.
All right, I'd like to call the order of the Operations Committee meeting at 8:15. Approval of the minutes for the March 14th Operations Committee meetings. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, could you hear me?
We need a second on the motion for approval of minutes.
Okay.
Second, thank you. Any questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 There are no presentations, and we will move to the agenda item 4A, Weaver Landscaping Snow Removal Contract Extension. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve an extension of the existing contract with Weaver Landscaping for an additional period of 2 years from the current expiration date of 6/30/2023. Weaver Landscaping has agreed to extend the contract with no additional increase in year 2024 or 2025 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns? I just will note that it's pleasing and very rare that a contractor company will not raise rates in subsequent years. So great negotiating skills by Mr. Dan Pellegrin, so thank you. Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Yes.
And yes. There are no informational items. Does any? I'm sorry? Oh, clearly I have a old agenda. 4B, 2023 Pennsylvania School Safety Conference. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the request of Frank Galbraith, Director of School and Public Safety, and Lauren Trago, Police Officer, to attend the 2023 Pennsylvania School Safety Conference at an estimated cost of $1,415.70 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, and/or concerns about the conference? Madam Superintendent, I would assume that this is, not assume, this is the annual School Safety Officers Conference that our public safety members are going to learn the latest and greatest tricks and trades and legal updates in the world of school safety. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Hearing none, call for the vote.
Yes.
And yes. All right. There are no informational items. Does anyone have any old business? Hearing none. Anyone have any new business? And hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Ms. Lauren Shannon Bailey. We'll pass. Okay. So the next meeting is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and I will motion for adjournment at 8:19.
I'd like to call to order the policy meeting. First order is approval of minutes. Recommended action, approval of the March 14th, 2023 Policy Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. There are no presentations. Moving on to agenda items. Letter A, recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 601 fiscal objections as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
She seconded.
She did second? Call for a vote?
Yes.
Yes. She yes? She did. Sorry, I can't hear. Sorry. Moving on to letter B, policy 602 budget planning. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 602 budget planning as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions? See. Thank you, sorry. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter C, policy 603, budget preparation. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 603 budget preparation as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
There is no change.
Let's call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter D, policy 604, budget adoption. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 604 budget adoption as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I think that was the second. She just said it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
There is no change with this policy.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter E, policy 605, tax levy. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 605, tax levy as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Can you do second?
Second, I can't hear. I mean, on this phone, nowhere.
Any comments or questions?
There is no change with this policy.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Letter F, policy 606, tax collection. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the
Becky,
policy.
sorry, can you vote on that one before we move on?
Did I not vote on it?
No, you didn't.
Call for the vote?
I mean, they voted yes, you didn't.
Did I not say yes? Sorry, yes. Letter F, policy 606, tax collection. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the policy 606, tax collection as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
There is no change.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
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 Letter G, Policy 607, Tuition Income. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 607 Tuition Income as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
There is no change with this policy.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter H, Policy 608, Bank Accounts. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 608 Bank Accounts as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
No changes.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter I, Policy 610, Purchases subject to bid quotation. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 610, Purchases subject to bid quotation as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
This policy was changed to reflect the new state bid amounts for price quotations.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter J, Policy 611, Purchases budgeted. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 611, Purchases budgeted as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
This policy was also changed to reflect updated budgetary limits requiring a purchasing agent.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter K, Policy 612, Purchases not budgeted. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 612, Purchases not budgeted as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
There is no change.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter L, Policy 613, Cooperative Purchases. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 613, Cooperative Purchasing as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Comments or questions?
There is no change.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter M, Policy 614, Payroll Authorization. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 614 Payroll Authorization as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Comments or questions?
There is no change.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter N, Policy 615, Payroll Deductions. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 615 Payroll Deductions as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
There are no changes.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
And yes. Letter O, Policy 616, Payment of Bills. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 616, Payment of Bills as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions?
There are no changes to this policy.
Call for the vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Letter P, Policy 617, Petty Cash. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Policy 617, Petty Cash as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the June 13, 2023. Oh, no. Is that correct? June 13th, Dr. Van Horn?
I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself?
So it says on here that the Board of School Directors approve the Policy 617, Petty Cash as presented, and if approved to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the June 13th, 2023 Board meeting?
No. It should be this board meeting.
Okay.
This upcoming board meeting. And just as a point of clarification, currently this district does not have petty cash. We do not use this policy. However, PSBA has suggested that we keep it.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter Q, Policy 618, Student Activity Funds. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 618 Student Activity Funds as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. And yes. Policy 619, District Audit. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 619 District Audit as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
There are no changes.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Policy 621, Local Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 621, Local Taxpayer Bill of Rights as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
No changes.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. And yes. Letter T, Policy 622, GASB Statement 34, that the Board of School Directors recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 622 GASB Statement 34 as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. And yes. Letter U, Policy 624, Taxable Fringe Benefits. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 624, Taxable Fringe Benefits as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter V, Policy 625, Procurement Cards. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 625 Procurement Cards as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any comments or questions?
Within this policy, there are administrative changes provided by PSBA, primarily reflecting the definition as well as the guidelines and procedures.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter W, Policy 626, Federal Fiscal Compliance. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Policy 626, Federal Fiscal Compliance as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Comments or questions?
This is a new policy focusing on financial management standards and procedures.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter X, Policy 626.1, Travel Reimbursement Federal Programs. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Policy 626.1, Travel Reimbursement Federal Programs as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Comments or questions?
This is also a new policy focusing on travel costs that are reimbursed through federal programs and defining travel costs.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Letter Y, Policy 627, District-Initiated Tax Assessment Appeals. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Policy 627, District-Initiated Tax Assessment Appeals as presented, and if approved, to move forward, that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 11, 2023 Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Comments or questions?
This is our third new policy, and it's focusing on the Director of Business Management and how they review recent real estate transactions.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Agenda item 5, informational items. These are the ARs that go with the policies that we just spoke of. There's no old business. Any new business? Public comment. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. For the financial management policy and procedures, that sounds very interesting. I wonder what is the motivation behind that new policy. I'm certainly sure that I can read it, and I planned on reading it, but I think it's information that the public would appreciate knowing a little bit more information about why at this point in time it's necessary. And thank you very much, Dr. Van Vorn, for identifying which policies are new, which policy have changes or do not have changes. It's information that the public is interested in, at least I am, so thank you.
Thank you. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and I will call for an adjournment at 8:34 p.m.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Coatesville Area School District School Board meeting for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. Agenda item 1B, reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Coatesville Area School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Agenda item 1C, advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minutes should also note that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Rob Fisher.
Here.
Brandon Roan.
Present.
Marvell Brown.
Here.
Holly Charest.
Here.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Here.
Becky Harlan.
Here.
Mary Ann Harris.
Here.
Amelia Mills.
Here.
Jennifer Schott.
At this time, if we could all stand for a moment of silence and followed by a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item number 2, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda this evening? Additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda this evening? I do have one modification based on the policy committee meeting prior to this. I would like to call my colleagues' attention to agenda item P under policy, and that would be petty cash. I'm going to reread the recommended, well, actually, the date is not on here for this, so, okay. Madam Secretary, if you could just make note that would be April 11th as opposed to what was listed there, January 13th.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other additions or deletions? Seeing none. Public comment. Agenda item number 3. And I don't have the, Madam Secretary, we're without the public comment. Without the language. So we'll just move forward with public comment. We all know that there's a 3-minute time limit, and it refers to the items that are on the agenda this evening. Ms. Shannon Bailey.
Thank you. In looking at the financial statements, outcome calculation July 22 to June 23, I'm thinking this is for staff, but I'm not sure. There are acronyms on here that I would appreciate knowing, exactly what they are. I'd like to know if this is a new document. It's a self-funding analysis, medical and drug. Also, the CRRSA Act. I'd like to know what the acronym. I'm sure I've heard it before, but it's not here. With regards to transportation services for $109,584, is that all things transportation? So bus driver salaries, fuel, what specifically does transportation salaries include? And I see that there is a balance here of $618,000. Another good reason to be mindful when you consider raising our tax dollars. The HR report still contains wording that I almost need a magnifying glass to read, but that's my problem. There's a teacher from Scott who is retiring. What kind of position is that? Is it science or math, special education? That would be helpful for the public to be aware of. And then finally, in the legal, this statement with the legal fees, I appreciate seeing all of this information, but there is some missing information. We have a board member who has abstained from voting on the finances, and I'm not going to get into that, but I don't see those services here. I'm not remembering exactly what it is, but there's always a reason when a board member chooses to not vote on a particular item. And so that item is not on this document here that is supposed to be legal fees, and so it would be helpful for the public to know why that information is being excluded from legal fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Moving on to agenda item number 4A, adoption of consent agenda. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action on all consent items which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. This evening, I would like to remove the following agenda items from consent agenda. Under finance, I would like to remove the entire finance agenda items. That would be starting with letter A, financial statements, going through letter G, human resources report. Again, that is the entire Finance Committee, A through G. In addition, under Education Committee, I would like to remove agenda item C, the proposed settlement agreement. Are there any other items to be removed from consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Harvell Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Ms. Mills, Finance Committee.
Thank you. A, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills payable list as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Motion approved.
B, creation of Director of Special Education position. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Director of Special Education position to report to Superintendent. This position will remove the special education duties from the Director of Pupil Services, thus making two separate positions, a Director of Pupil Services and a Director of Special Education. The salary and benefit range for this position will follow the Act 93 employee agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Ms. Mills, if I may,
Yeah.
please. I asked to remove agenda items B through F because these are all creation of new positions. Therefore, I figured that this warrants a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Motion approved.
C, addition of one secondary ESL teacher position. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of one secondary ESL teacher position. This position will support the increase of ESL needs at the high school campus. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Becky Harlan. Yes. Holly Charez,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Motion approved.
D, addition of 3 elementary teacher positions. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of 3 elementary positions to support increased class size. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Holly Charez,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Motion approved.
E, creation of 1 life skills transition coordinator. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of 1 life skills transition coordinator teacher position for the campus. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Holly Charez,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Motion approved.
F, addition of 2 special education teachers. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the addition of 2 special education teacher positions. 1 position will support Count Elementary Autistic Classroom, and 1 position will support the intermediate high school learning support caseloads. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charez,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Harvell Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
G, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignation, appointments, new positions, leaves of absence, transfers, changes of status, and corrections as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Mills, if I may, please.
Yep.
This evening, the Board of Directors will entertain the request for retirement from Ms. Kim Grodzinski, 35 years of service, currently working at Scott Middle School, affectionately known as Miss G. Miss G was a part of the middle school scene here for the last 35 years and affected in a positive manner countless numbers of students, and she will be sorely missed. But we wish her the very best in her retirement, and we wish for a healthy and long retirement for her. Thank you, Ms. Mills.
And thank you. Call for the vote?
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charez,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Ms. Mills, Education Committee.
Moving on to Education Committee, item C, proposed settlement agreement 100188379. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the settlement agreement for student 100188379 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Call for the vote.
Harvell Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Holly Charez,
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item 9A, public comment. The board has requested that all persons making comments of public concern to list their name, address, telephone number, and topic on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. Ms. Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. For the final budget notice, there's 2 documents in the agenda about the budget and dates. One is final budget notice and notice of special meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's not it. or maybe it is, a resolution approving the preliminary budget and authorizing final budget notice. So specifically, when can the public start to review the budget, I guess is what I would like to know. There's a lot of information here, but I don't see as of April the 13th or April the 12th up until June, whatever. It would be helpful if we knew exactly when we could go in and review the budget.
So I can answer that. As soon as that is board approved at our next budget, or our next meeting in April, it'll be available for public review.
Okay, so do we contact you, or who do we?
You can come to the district office. There'll be a copy out downstairs available for public viewing at that time.
Okay, so we don't have to say, I would like to come down and reach, okay,
No,
very
reach it
good, very good. And then for the general, thank you very much. Then for the general fund cash balance, as of February the 1st, 2023, the balance was 84, I don't know, is that million? Now it's 96, is it 96 million? Is that actually 96 million? I'd like to know, if you can't answer, that's fine, but there's a big difference between 84 million on February the 1st, and total cash now is 96 million. Can't be million. But I'd like to know why or how is it that the balance is increasing. It's not a bad thing. We didn't have a general fund cash balance for several years, but now it's up to $96 million, and so I guess I would need to email you for that information, which is fine. Special education parent education nights. Is this program being held tomorrow night as scheduled at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.? I have not seen it on your Facebook page. It seems that there's been a lot of inconsistencies in these trainings. I've talked about the fact that sometimes parents get email messages. For the most part, they're not. And when I say parents and guardians, I specifically mean those parents with children who have IEPs. So there's been very, very consistent or inconsistent advertising of these trainings. I attended most of them. The attendance has been low. It's just troubling that we have so many IEPs, so many children with IEPs in the district, and I'm sure someone is calculating or following the attendance. I don't have to tell you all how important this training is, and I would appreciate if we could do a little bit better job in getting this information out to parents.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Ms. Shannon Bailey, a point of clarification. The board will be voting at the end of the month on a preliminary budget, and then that preliminary budget will be available, and then, of course, we have until June to finalize that budget. Under number 10, informational items, you will see all the ARs that appear there along with the approved policies from this evening. To my colleagues, are there any additional informational items at this time?
Mr. Fisher, if I may just real quickly.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. This parent would just like to extend a thank you to Ms. G for your years of service. As of now, all 3 of my kids had the privilege of having Ms. G as their science teacher, 2 at South and currently 1 at Scott. It's such a pleasure to have seen the joy that she brought to my kids in love of learning of science. So, Ms. G, this parent thanks you very much and happy retirement.
Amen. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, just for Ms. Lauren Shannon Bailey, in regards to your question about the technology piece for the new math curriculum, I did speak to that in the response to that there is still paper for the students in the younger grades and textbooks for students at the secondary level. So it is not completely digital.
Any additional informational items? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
We will adjourn at 8:53.
Okay, we're all done. I'll talk to you later, all right? Bye.
Was that user error or did it freeze? I think I just
So, in answer,
My laptop said I had 9 hours when I got here.
Well, I always charge
I don't
mine
really.